We begin our service today with psalms and recitations that when we put them together, we honor the life of Abe Globerman with the over 6,000 years of tradition of the people of Zion, the nation of Israel. Mizmor leDavid Adonai Roi lo esa binat eshe ya Rabbi tzeni al menuchot ינעלני נפשי שווה ינחני למען צדק למען שמו כמה כי ילך כמה כי ילך בגיא צלמוות לא ירא כי אתה עמדי שבטך ומשענתך המה ינחמוני תערוך לפני שולחן נגד צוררי תשענת בשמן ראשי כוסי רוויה אך טוב וחסד ירדפוני כל ימי חיי ושבתי בבית אדוני לאורך ימי. With Psalm 23, also referred to as Mizmor LeDavid, or the Psalm of David. Adonai is my shepherd, I shall not want, giving me repose in green meadows, leading me beside the still waters to revive my spirit, guiding me on the right path, for that is God's essence. Though I walk through a valley of the shadow of death, I fear no harm, for you are with me. Your staff and your rod comfort me. You prepare a banquet for me in the presence of my foes. You anoint my head with oil, my cup overflows. Surely goodness and kindness shall be my portion all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of God forever. And we can all say, Amen. When Paula and Evie were little girls, they had a father in Abe who made them their own paper cutout dolls with perfection. They were cut to exact dimensions and they were all matching, just as what was every carrot or onion he ever chopped or chocolate curl he ever carved. He was a man with a keen eye for everything around him, especially his great love and his wife of 65 years, his Naomi. When I asked his daughters what was most important to their father, they both emphatically and unequivocally and at the same time announced, our mother. And I learned from them how Naomi and Abe for 70 years not only loved each other, but liked each other. Abe was serious, quiet, and charming, an intellectual man with impeccable manners. And Naomi, I'm told by his daughters, brought him until the day he died. His laughter, his fun, his pizzazz, his freilach. And together they were side by side in hospital as he left this world, holding her hand on the 23rd of the Hebrew month of Nisan, 5779. Abe and Naomi met while he was doing yard work, a part-time job he held as a teenager, potentially even working for Naomi's family, according to her most recent memory. Regardless of which yard, Naomi was about 18 at the time and was hanging around with her very close friend and, most importantly, Abe's sister Nina. Naomi managed to stop Abe from doing his work and asked him to just stop for a moment and if he would take a picture of her and her then boyfriend at the time. He stopped, he took the picture, and then he asked her out. He took her on their very first date to see, of course, the architecture in some building he was interested in, and then they went for burgers. After both of them were university educated, they reconvened, dated, and were married. And Abe considered himself, all the years, as he would say, quote, the luckiest man in the world. And his daughters knew this was because of their mother, Naomi. They described their parents as the couple. Evie and Paula have vivid memories of their parents in the 60s getting ready for a party all dolled up. And their father would summon his daughters and he would say, come and see the most beautiful woman in the world. Together they enjoyed arts and theater, entertaining, parties, dining in restaurants, and dancing. And the kind of dancing that would stop a room to watch them, maybe to enjoy their style, their dancing, or their ability to be joyous. I'm going to reflect for a moment on their joy together because it holds such significance at this time of year for the Jewish people. The month of Nisan, which is the month we're in right now, is recognized as our time of redemption, of being released from our bondage, from our shackles of slavery into the world, to do something, to change a consciousness, to some would argue encourage a value system that would elevate all of humanity. And it started with our opportunity when we crossed that Red Sea in the story so famously told at Passover time. We crossed the Red Sea into the vast wilderness, and we were challenged to accept the struggle, to find meaning, and to yearn to find joy. Perhaps some Jewish educators even say that this was our earliest representation of a life of holiness. To look for opportunities, to embrace what was beautiful in life, to find meaning through ritual, through practices of a religion that was intended in many ways to help us see things clearly, find our world and the people around us that were worth taking care of. I think Abe, or Abram, in his quiet way, appreciated so deeply the power of finding and appreciating what was beautiful in his surroundings. So he paid attention to those little marigolds in the garden because they had an impact. And when he put them all together in that line of his, neatly organized, they were noticed and they were special. And they were something he did so intensely and so purposefully. He made lines of vegetables and of flowers, the kind of lines that his daughters used to joke with him. They would say, NASA could plot satellites by the lines in your garden, Dad. And he would say, well, they're almost perfect. Abe Globerman lived life with intention, a deliberate way of doing things just so they'd be right. It takes paying attention and wanting to pay attention to live life in this way. In many ways, this is at the heart of our Jewish teachings that encourage us to explore why we do things and why we do things in a certain way, a deliberate action to help us experience the world around us with awareness. When Abe returned home from the office every day, he hung his coat on the tree in the yard so that he could walk the garden, to take it in, and maybe do some fixing in the place that he had so decidedly created to be orderly flowers, in contradiction, which only didn't happen often, to the overflowing English garden that Naomi wanted. He saved that vision for the flower pots by the pool at their home in the gorgeous natural setting on St. Cross Street, the backdrop to many memories of friends, lifelong friends and family, which form the warm, fond, remembered scenes in the lives of Evie and Paula. All their family gathered at their home, and those groovy parties. They came to know their parents for these groovy parties, and there was always music. They called it just now to me the 60s playlist. There were the Beatles, this is just to name a few, the Mamas and the Papas, Joan Baez. These were always playing in their home, and sometimes Elvis when Abe wasn't around. Mostly, though, Abram loved doing anything with Naomi. So there he would be alongside his wife. There would be blintzes described by their children as precise and lined up like soldiers. Every measurement exactly the same, like the perfectly diced vegetables cut to be each the same size. There was Naomi's pavlova in the shape of a Magen David made according to Abe's pattern with precise dimensions for Hanukkah. And then on top, adorned with the famous shaved chocolate circles made by their dad. His daughters have a memory of watching their father and his father, so their Zeta Meshel, making buckwheat latkes at Hanukkah time called rechlin, and they would help each other, switching off frying pans to make sure that each other's latkes matched the size of the other ones. He made lines in carpets and backed out of the room so there shouldn't be any footprints. And he did all this, as I said before, because of his keen sense of aesthetic, but mostly and more importantly because Naomi wanted him to. Abe was born in Winnipeg, September 10th, 1929, to Mashel and Rachel Globerman. He was brother to Nina and her husband Alvin, who are left to mourn him today, and to Esther of blessed memory and Morley of blessed memory. He is beloved husband to Naomi and father to Paula and Graham and Evie and John. And he is Zeta to Rachel and Nathan, Max and Morgan and Daniel. Trained as an interior designer, Abe worked for the family business G3 Limited with his father and his brother, designing and selling furniture. He always knew from a young boy that he loved design. He was artistically very gifted, and this came through in everything he touched. His children remember painting classes in their home, and that their basement floor was painted blue by their dad. He set the decor and design choice for every home he created for his family, and he set a minimalist, clean, and organized, serene environment for them. He never liked lace and ruffles or tchotchkes, except for a well-placed piece of pottery. His style perhaps reflected his dignified, refined way, his man of composure and clarity. Yet, when it came to his daughters, it seems to me he could really fascinate them with his superb, flourishing creativity. He taught Evie and Paula how to draw with perspective. Paula remembers that at about 3 years old, her mother had made her a big circular skirt from the pattern that Abe had, of course, made her. And there he was putting on the finishing touches where he had hand cut by felt each car of a train. And he glued the car of the train onto the bottom of the skirt so that when Paula twirled, the train would move and it would putt and it would smoke. So it would come to life on the edge of her skirt. I think he was really teaching them both that art could move and reflect the life it depicts. He would hand paint geometric patterns along the top of their bedrooms to match their bedspreads. He framed all of their pictures himself with the underside of the materials from their furniture store, and he made empty boxes into life-size fridges and stoves, and cut patterns into potatoes to make painted art designs with his children. Abe was a man of few words, though, except when it came to crossword puzzles. Then he was, as his daughters referred to, a word nerd, which is, I'm told, a Globerman family trait. Never leave an unfinished or incorrect puzzle around a Globerman home. It will be finished and also corrected. But when it came to spoken words, they were not very often, and although he had strong opinions, strong likes and dislikes, Abram chose those words carefully and wisely. Instead, he quietly plunked himself in the middle of the scene and made the food or took a nap, but right in the middle of the floor, in the middle of the action. An event he is famous for, especially napping with baby grandchild Rachel on his chest, in the middle of, as Evie describes, utter, as Paula describes, utter chaos. Utter chaos. New baby, lots going on. There he was asleep with a newborn on his chest in the middle of the floor. He found his own way of staying calm, because the best place for him was right in the middle of everything. He was well read, a very athletic guy who was such a good dancer he was referred to as Twinkle Toes. And about the only thing that he didn't do with Naomi was attend a sporting event, except for the odd baseball game she would go along with him. These were experiences that instead held special times for him with his grandchildren and horseback riding with his daughters. He loved animals and had great respect for nature. So when Evie was living in Zimbabwe, he and Naomi went to visit her. And aside from doing a masterful job making Daniel a bow and arrow from scratch, he went on a safari twice that were considered by his daughter to be the highlight of his life, and about which the man of few words said he thought he had found the Garden of Eden. Abe's daughters asked me to share the song some of you will recognize. It's called Essa Enai. They wanted me to share it with you today. It's really an appropriate song as we honor the life of their dad, of Abraham. Because the meaning of the psalm suggests that our solace in the world comes from our surroundings, representing the awe inspired by our Creator. I'm going to sing for you from the Book of Psalms. It's referred to in English as a song for ascents. Esavenai eleharim me'ayin yavo ezri Esainai Eleharin Me'ayin Ve'ayin Yavu Ezri Me'im Adonai Ose Shamayim Ba'aretz Ezri Me'im Adonai Ose Shamayim Ba'aretz. So the sentiment in that section of the song is that I turn my head to the mountains for my help, to find my support, my solace, my comfort. And it comes from God, the maker of heaven and earth. In other religions, that's referred to, interestingly enough, as the joyful praise to the Lord. An ancient people, we are well acquainted with darkness and the valley of shadows. And as mortals, fragile humans exposed to extremes of life, its challenges, its triumphs, we can be inspired by the life of Abe Globerman and how every day seemed to be special to him, surrounded by the beauty he was aware enough to see, from the mundane to the profound. This was how he led his life, worthy of the words shared by his daughters as they left the room after speaking with me yesterday. They both turned to me and they said, "It was a really good life. It was a really good life." There's a moment under the wedding canopy at the Jewish wedding ceremony where the bride and the groom are referred to in the 7 blessings as the Chatan and Kala. And in the last bracha of the Sheva, the famous 7 blessings, the cantor, the rabbi, will sing, Kol sason b'kol simcha, kol chatan b'kol chala. The ancient crafted words of these brachot intend to teach us that the chatan and the kala, who lead a life of deep respect and care for each other, can be so powerful that in the mystical sense, it can inspire a whole nation and bring tears of happiness that lead all the way to Jerusalem. In English, that line reads, "The voices of joy and gladness can be heard in the cities of Judah from this Chatan and Kala." So may the joy of Abe with his beloved wife Naomi continue to ring true for many generations of his family. May it inspire you all to find beauty in this remarkable world and care for it deeply. Tehi nishmato tzur b'tzur chayim, may his soul be bound up in the bond of life eternal. May he forever rest in peace. And we can all say, Amen. Please rise. El Malerachamim Shochen Mameromim Hametzem Nucha Nechona Tachat Kan Verschina B'ma'alot Kedoshim Uteharim Kizol Harakyam Masirim Anishmat Abraham Ben Moshe Berachel Shalach Leolamo Vegan Eden Tiem Menuchato Ana Bal Rachamim Hastirayu Besatar Knafecha Leolamim Utzror Bi Tzror Chaim Nishmato Adonai u'nachalato ve'yanuach b'shalom al mishkavo ve'nomar Amen. Exalted, compassionate God, grant infinite rest in your sheltering presence among the holy and the good to the soul of, in Hebrew, Avraham, the son of Moshe and Rachel, who has gone to his eternal home. Merciful one, we ask that our loved one find perfect peace in your eternal embrace. May his soul be bound up in the bond of life. May he forever rest in peace. And we can all say, Amen. You can be seated for a moment. We're now going to continue to the Shaare Tzedek Cemetery, and you are welcome to follow in the procession. We're going to be going all the way down Main Street, and it'll be on our left. I encourage you to keep your hazard lights on as you proceed, and please observe traffic rules as we all follow the lead car. Immediately following the burial at Shaare Tzedek Cemetery, you are all invited to the Meal of Consolation, which is taking place at the Shaftesbury, which is 905 Shaftesbury Boulevard. So that'll be immediately following the final stage of the Jewish burial, which will be at the cemetery. If you're not able to come with us to the cemetery, you're welcome to go directly to the Shaftesbury and just wait for the family to get there once they're finished. So I'm going to ask now for the pallbearers be the first to take your positions by the casket. And then the rest of us, what we do is we stand at our places, and because we're in two rows really already, two sections, what we're doing by standing in our places is we're recreating the times of the temple, where we would stand in two lines to comfort the family as they pass through the two lines on their way out of the sanctuary. So I'm going to ask you to rise now, and we'll take a moment